are saying this to other women. We're just doing it the best we can.
Yeah, and don't judge a person until you really walk in their shoes.
This meteorologist is standing up to trolls who say her legs are too big for TV.
Because that's the day that my grief turned to rage when I saw those guys joking around about the love god.
News Channel senior meteorologist Janice Dean was shocked when a viewer named Joanne posted this on her Facebook page. Please stop allowing Fox to dress you in those short skirts. They are not flattering on you. You're an attractive lady, love the 80s hair, but your legs are distracting every time you walk on.
Every morning, millions of Americans wake up, pour their coffee, and see her there. Warm smile, steady voice, pointing at maps like she's personally negotiating with the sky. Janice Dean didn't just report the weather, she made you believe she could outsmart it. But while she warned the country about hurricanes barreling toward the coast, something far more destructive was already moving through her own body. Silent, unpredictable, and completely invisible to the cameras. If you're the kind of person who's drawn to stories where strength isn't loud, it's earned in private, do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Stories like this don't come around every day, and I don't want you to miss what's coming. Janice Dean was exactly where she had fought to be. Canadian kid turned American television star on Fox and Friends. The weather queen. The woman viewers trusted to tell them what the sky was planning. In 2004, she stepped onto one of the biggest morning shows in the country, and almost immediately people felt it. She wasn't performing. She cared. She studied the storms like they were personal. Then, barely a year in, her own body delivered a forecast no one saw coming. It started small. Bone-deep fatigue that sleep couldn't touch, numbness creeping through her thighs, feet that sometimes felt like they belonged to someone else. She was covering one of the most brutal hurricane seasons on record, Katrina, Rita, Wilma, and told herself it was just exhaustion. The season ended. The numbness didn't. The neurologist's words landed like a quiet explosion. Multiple sclerosis. Her immune system had turned on her, stripping the protective coating from her nerves. Relapsing, remitting. No cure. No reliable pattern. One day, she might feel almost normal. The next, walking could become a negotiation. And then came the second blow. The words she was never supposed to repeat. Keep this to yourself. No one wants to see a sick person on TV. She was 35 years old, newly diagnosed, terrified, and being told her career depended on pretending she was fine. For a while, she carried that secret the way people carry shame they didn't earn. She stood in front of the green screen during flare-ups. She smiled through the fatigue. She delivered calm forecasts while her own nervous system was unraveling behind her eyes. The camera never showed the infusion chair. It never showed the morning she took silent inventory of her body before her feet even touched the floor. But Janice Dean has never been very good at staying quiet. By the time 2020 arrived, the world had its own storm, COVID. And for Janice, it became devastatingly personal. Her husband Sean's parents, Dee and Mickey Newman, were elderly, living in separate assisted living facilities in New York. Mickey, a former firefighter like his son. Dee, the woman who had built a life beside him for decades. They weren't statistics, they were family. In late March, Mickey died of the virus. 2 weeks later, Dee was gone. They died alone. No final goodbyes. No hands held. The grief was crushing. But what happened next turned grief into something sharper. Governor Andrew Cuomo had signed an order requiring nursing homes to accept patients recovering from COVID, including those still positive. The policy stayed in place for 46 days. Thousands of infected patients moved into facilities full of the exact people the virus hunted most ruthlessly. The death toll that followed was staggering, and Janice began to speak, not as a political voice, but as a daughter-in-law who had just buried 2 parents under circumstances she believed never should have happened. She described her father-in-law being moved to a floor with COVID patients, her mother-in-law contracting the virus in her facility and dying in a hospital. Her death not even counted in the official nursing home numbers because it happened outside the building. These are not numbers on a curve, she said. These are people. The backlash was swift and ugly. She's just the weather girl. the same phrase meant to shrink her, to remind her she should stick to clouds and pressure systems. She prepared to testify before state lawmakers. Her name was added to the list. Then, quietly removed. Too uncomfortable. Still, she didn't stop. She kept pushing for real answers, for investigations with teeth. While national media celebrated Cuomo with Emmys and book deals, Janice watched from the raw edge of fresh loss. Then, the data started shifting. A senior aide later admitted on a recorded call that the administration had hidden the true numbers from federal investigators for political reasons. The nursing home death toll was revised dramatically upward, more than 15,000. Janice had been saying it for nearly a year. The vindication tasted like ash. All the while, the storm inside her body never took a break. MS doesn't pause for grief or public fights. It keeps score in silence. For 2 decades, she managed it. Infusions every 6 months, discipline, faith, sheer force of will. She raised 2 boys. She stood in front of the nation. She refused to disappear. Then, in late 2025, the disease pressed harder than it ever had. She stepped away from the desk. She traveled to Rome with her husband during the Catholic Jubilee, searching for spiritual healing in the city of saints and second chances. When she returned, she was honest in a way that stopped people cold. In February 2026, at 55 years old, she said publicly what those closest to her already feared. It was getting harder every single day. No drama, no performance, just truth. The woman who had once been told no one wanted to see a sick person on television was still showing up, flawed, fatigued, but refusing to vanish. Think about that for a second. For 20 years, she carried a diagnosis she was pressured to hide. She buried family under a policy she refused to let die quietly. She raised sons while waging a war inside her own nervous system. And through it all, she kept warning the rest of us about storms we could actually see. This isn't really a story about weather. It's about what happens when the forecast for your own life looks impossible, and you still choose to stand up and speak. Janice Dean didn't become unforgettable because she was perfect on camera. She became unforgettable because she understood that some truths matter more than comfort, more than career safety, more than political convenience. She is still here, still fighting, still telling the truth about what's coming, even when the hardest forecast is her own. And maybe that's why so many people can't look away, because in her story, they see their own invisible battles reflected back at them, the ones no one else can see, the ones they're told to keep quiet about. Janice Dean became the storm she was never supposed to survive, and she's still standing. If her courage hit you, share this with someone who needs it. And remember, visibility isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most powerful forecast of all.